Splinter Cell. The only Ubisoft franchise left that can still be considered fresh, but only because it died suddenly and the body was stuffed in a freezer while it was still warm, much like Tom Clancy himself. But that ingeniously written comparison between Ubisoft's series of Tom Clancy games and the very dead author whose name they bear doesn't end with their untimely demise. Like the books, there's only a handful of Tom Clancy branded games worth playing, and the rest can be discarded into the ghost-written category. For the novels, you could do worse than dust off your conservative grandpa's copy of Hunt for the Red October. For games, it was Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. Chaos Theory came from a time when Ubisoft released something other than open-world games, which probably explains why Splinter Cell hasn't had a new installment in years. Just Sam Fisher cameos in other open-world games. Here's where I would talk about the plot of Chaos Theory, but I can't really remember what happened during it. The same goes for every Splinter Cell game I've played. And in another brilliant comparison, the same goes for Tom Clancy novels. They're all basically about the same thing. Take a look at Ian Fleming's James Bond novels. Call them too gay and too liberal. Then write your own about gruff, stern, Republican men cut from excess Mount Rushmore granite as they take on yet another plot to undermine America. Even Splinter Cell Conviction's plot is fading fast, and is only notable for how splinter under thumbnail painful it is. You see, after Chaos Theory, the Splinter Cell games developed a bit of a midlife crisis, which also happens to match the age demographic of people who read Tom Clancy novels. How do you go about attracting a younger audience fresh off Call of Duty with a franchise known for methodical and slow-paced stealth and featuring a grouchy aged protagonist? Easy. You make him angrier by killing his daughter. That's one more notch in the now barely held together belt of dead family members in a Ubisoft game. Then double down on third-person cover shooting. Double Agent is where this series started going wrong by adding more combat, but still stuck with the stealth gameplay of the previous games. But Conviction was the game that cheated on its wife and bought a motorcycle. What was a slow-paced stealth series where shooting anything but a light bulb was discouraged, was turned into a game where the first and only option is to shoot the person in front of you. Shoot the person next to that guy. And if that's too much for you, the game will even shoot them for you.
Just do what you have to do.
I always do, Sam. I always do.
Splinter Cell Conviction starts out in medias res, setting up what looks to be a betrayal by Sam's longtime partner Grim. In medias res is meant to create an air of mystery around a foreshadowed event that makes little sense without the context of the plot then works its way back to. In Conviction's case, all of the context is contained in the very seconds before this scene occurs, so it's not so much a mystery as a misleading outright lie about what happens here.
The thing you have to understand is this. The Sam Fisher you knew is dead.
First in medias res and now an interrogation scene with one of the leading characters, who serves as a narrator for the events of the game. That's two cliché story openings in the first minute of the game, and they don't even mesh together. Did Vic begin by telling his interrogators that Grim shot Sam and then would get back around to that part? And Vic is a poor person to interrogate about all this, since he was only there for a few bits of it. You can't have a first-hand account of things you weren't present for.
America killed him, asked him to make one sacrifice too many, cross one line too far.
Sam was a giant walking cliché of heroic principles, written to appeal to those who make up stories about that one time they beat up 4 Navy SEALs who jumped them as they were coming out of a bar.
A drunk driver killed him, some anonymous asshole who ran down his daughter and vanished. She was the one thing in his life that humanized him.
Ubisoft used to wait a few games before killing your family whenever they ran out of ideas. Sam Fisher is one of those video game characters who gets older canonically while looking younger and younger.
Grim, what do you want?
To save your life. We can go from there. A team of armed men just entered the marketplace looking for you.
Sam Fisher is one of the greatest Spec Ops soldiers to ever live in Tom Clancy's universe, and he didn't seem like he was interested in fighting against whoever the bad guys are. He didn't even know they existed. He was sitting around at an outdoor cafe minding his own business while looking for his daughter's killer. And considering that his daughter doesn't actually have a killer in the first place, it's a miracle he actually stumbled upon a positive lead. The only reason Sam gets involved in any of this is due to circumstance and the stupidity of the people who decide to send goons after Sam for no real reason. This is one of those games I was convinced that everyone playing it had just picked up their very first video game, so it better damn well play as much of the game for them as possible. Which is why it likes to display large text that says "hide here" on the very wall it wants you to hide behind. And instead of picking your targets and shooting them yourself, the game lets you map multiple targets while in cover and press a button to kill all of them in one go. If this is how they want to hold my hand, they might as well have shipped the game with an older brother who hands you a second controller and tells you that you're player 2 while he does everything himself. Far be it from me to complain even more about how this game is nothing like it used to be, but what else am I supposed to do? Every single thing that was unique to Sam Fisher is either gone or you don't get to use until the end of the game. Night vision goggles? Sorry, saved until the end of the game. Sticky cameras that emit sleeping gas? Again, save for the end of the game, and now they explode so you can't even use them for stealth. What about the move where Sam does a mid-air split in a hallway so enemies pass underneath completely unaware? What's that? Sorry, can't hear you over the new torture system we're implementing. Some of the old tricks that previous games had are still there, like looking under doors to see if someone was on the other side. But in the old games, that was something you did or you died when you stumbled into a room full of enemies. I never felt that danger in Conviction, so I never peeked under a door more than a few times at the start, because there was no sense of danger of stumbling into a firefight.
Hang on. I'm tapping into the city's power grid. That'll let me overload the transformers near you and blow out those lights.
A planned power outage lets Sam sneak by his assailants triggers a flashback to a night where he had to put his daughter to bed. This serves two purposes. To make you remember that Sam was a dad, since that angle of his character only ever came up right before the credits rolled in the previous games. And to teach you that when in darkness, Sam Fisher is part dog who doesn't see color. That's right, they even dropped the night vision goggles for a black and white filter so you can see what you're doing. Even the stealth likes to hold your hand. If Sam's night vision is this good, then why would he ever need goggles in the first place?
When it's light, you can't see into a place that's dark. But when it's dark, you can see what's around you much better.
Really?
Really. So if there's monsters or bad people around, you can see them.
This game holds your hand so tightly I get the feeling that it was made for people the same age as Sam's daughter. They even chose to explain stealth mechanics in words a toddler could understand. After teaching me how the stealth mechanics work, the game then cuts back to the blackout Grim just caused and she orders me to shoot the thugs. I'm getting some mixed messages on how exactly I'm supposed to be playing this game. The old standby is that the first thing you learn to do in a game is the action you'll be performing the most. I think I could have shot them just fine with the lights on, but whatever. Pop pop, 2 dead guards, and that was the very first thing the game had me do. In Conviction, Sam is a lot more aggressive when it comes to interrogating enemies. Used to be all Sam had to do was put someone in a chokehold and threaten them with the business end of a knife. Now he makes them bite down on a kitchen sink and kicks the back of their head before they will utter a single helpful syllable. Coben had been bragging about killing Sam's daughter in a hit and run, but all he actually did was provide a body that looked like Sam's daughter. Who brags about killing someone's daughter in a hit and run? Are there people out there that would be impressed by the fact that you were too much of a pussy to go after Sam himself so killed his daughter instead? Whenever a hero works for a shadowy and clandestine organization tasked with doing the dirty work of democracy, it is inevitable that at some point that organization will end up being bad guys that turn on their former best agent. I don't even know who Reed is, but the first thing he does is shoot one of his own men for some reason. So that must mean he's the villain. Reed tells Graham to interrogate Sam about the EMP, something Sam knows nothing about until he just mentioned it, making this plot point number 2 that Sam didn't know about or care about until the guy who's running the show brought it to his attention.
Now, if you don't make it look like you escaped and attacked me, I'm dead. So make it look good, Sam. Hit me.
So Sam escapes under Grimm's watch, takes her car with a conveniently disabled GPS, and he somehow knows to disable the on-site chopper so it can't blow him off the road, knows to disable the power along with a satellite dish communications array for an overhead spy plane with C4 he procured on site, and still Reed and Third Echelon will not suspect Grimm of helping Sam because he smacked her twice. Third Echelon is a US Black Ops intelligence group. I think they might know the trick of roughing up the person who let you escape. Hell, the only reason Reed is the director of Third Echelon now is because Sam had to kill his own boss in the last game to maintain his cover. This may be one of the most gratuitous flashback levels I've ever encountered. As Sam is escaping the airfield, he calls an old friend for help, who happens to have been Sam's war buddy during the Gulf War. What follows is an entire level where you play as Sam's friend Vic, gunning down Iraqi soldiers along the highway of death to rescue Sam who was grabbed after an ambush. It has nothing to do with anything related to the plot, but it does offer up a pure third-person shooter experience with none of that pesky stealth to get in the way.
But Sam's deal with Grimm meant he needed intel on EMPs and Black Arrow right now.
He could probably get all that intel from Grimm, who's pretending to be loyal to Reed. Reed even instructed her to question Sam on the EMPs. If Grimm herself knows nothing about what Reed wants them for, then how was she supposed to question Sam about them? She wouldn't have even known what to ask.
The other question was where to meet. We picked the National Mall, public space, lots of crowds for cover, open approaches. It made life tricky for the spotters. I could dodge him. Sam, he could find.
You're up against a rogue Black Ops organization and you think meeting in the nation's capital is clever. I've come to despise cutscenes like this, because you know regardless of how clever they make it sound, they're going to be found out anyway. It should be mentioned that you spend most of the game fighting Black Arrow, a private military company, which has become Ubisoft's favorite non-controversial enemy group over the past 10 years. I'm not quite sure why a private military company thinks it's good business to assist with a terrorist attack on the US Capitol and an attempted coup, but that's the beauty of making your enemies a PMC. They can be as stupid and self-destructive as your badly written plot needs them to be since they lack any sort of development or nuance.
All those years you were lying to me.
It was for the greater good, Sam. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, for the same reasons.
You're not feeling a bit self-conscious about this twist you've set up in the story, are you? Is that why you're showing it to me again for no actual reason? You can't sell anyone on a twist if you're this desperate for it. Must have been a lot of voltage running through that USB-connected keyboard, and if the EMP can cause a keyboard to electrocute a guy, Then I'm surprised it didn't electrocute Sam as well, since he activated it from a keyboard right across from that one.
Was that Reed was meeting Galliard at the memorial in the morning, right after some bullshit photo op speech the VP was giving. Galliard's people were handling event logistics, which was why he'd be there. Grimm took it to the president, who didn't like the coincidence. She wanted to know what they were talking about, and that meant getting Sam on site for audio surveillance.
Apparently, the vice president is involved in this, which means you can guess where this is going, since there's only ever one answer as to why the vice president would be scheming behind the president's back.
You need to sync the feed from the console to me so that I can see what we're getting. It should be easy to hack.
Hang on.
That's it.
Grimm wasn't kidding when she said the camera controls would be easy to hack. Sam hit no more than 3 keys.
Now I need you to get comfortable with those camera controls. We're dealing with directional mics here, high-end, but they're integrated with the camera focus. Get Reed and Galliard in the shot, and we'll get the audio.
This is the camera system that was used for recording the VP's speech earlier. Those don't use directional microphones. Productions like this use lapel microphones worn by the person giving the speech, or microphones placed directly in front of them.
The people I represent want you to deal with Fisher. Stop wasting time. Stop wasting their money.
If Megiddo's getting cold feet...
Let me make this clear, Reed. Megiddo planned this operation. Megiddo paid for this operation. And Megiddo would be very upset if anyone were allowed to interfere with it.
Megiddo is some shadowy Illuminati-like organization that runs the world from the shadows that Reed and Galliard take orders from, and they won't even be mentioned in the sequel to this game.
You're supposed to be in Paris. All hell's about to break loose. My men will be very busy.
The president had just listened in on Reed, who runs Third Echelon, discuss all hell breaking loose in Washington, D.C. tonight. Some action is required. Move the president somewhere safe like Camp David. Mobilize the National Guard. But the president takes no action. So why the hell did she want to listen in on all this?
He wants to run the show when the EMPs are triggered. There's 3 of them scattered around the city. In a few hours, they go off, and he gets to play commando.
Now you know Reed has EMPs scattered around the capital, and he will set them off in 3 hours. Any countermeasures you'd like to enact during this window of opportunity to safeguard the citizens and their duly elected president? They have all the intel they need to stop this from happening.
Megiddo. Who are they?
They're the ones who run this town. In Moscow and Beijing and any other place that matters.
It's like this game is setting them up to be the villain of the next game. After all, you can't just write in a globe-spanning cabal and then do nothing with it. But that's exactly what happens.
They're the ones who are going to get me out of this in one piece. And once Reed is finished at the White House...
Galliard is shot and killed right as he was about to mention Reed's attack on the White House. But even without him saying the full name, I think you could figure out the target based on all the evidence in the letter W. The cop who shot Galliard to keep him from talking had a clear shot on Sam while he was distracted and could have shot him instead. Killing Sam would have served the same purpose, and in fact was the better choice than killing Galliard to keep him from spilling. Galliard's killer was a police officer Sam has to chase through the National Mall. But just as he gets into a getaway car to drive away, it's blown up by a car bomb. So somehow Megiddo knew Sam would be here to interrogate Galliard today, and sent this guy to kill Galliard instead of Sam, but then also planted a car bomb to kill their hitmen afterward. If they know that much beforehand, then they should be able to kill Sam anytime they want. This is now in medias resing in the middle of the story to remind you yet again that Grimm is certainly, definitely, 100% absolutely going to betray Sam. We aren't showing this to you because we put no other work into setting up a twist. Being up front is all we hope to accomplish. Who drove that SUV here that Sam was hiding in the back of? There's no one in the driver's seat when Sam hops out of the trunk.
I'm sorry, sir, but I'm afraid the office is closed for the evening.
I'm here to see Tom Reed.
Mr. Reed is currently unavailable, but if you'd like to make an appointment, Mr.
Fisher. I used to work here.
This is a secret black site run by an organization that isn't even supposed to exist. Why the hell would they have a reception desk?
I've got those. Ultra-high frequency sonar goggles. Better than the stuff the new Splinter Cells are getting.
It took most of the game, but Sam finally gets his goggles back. But night vision goggles were rendered pretty unnecessary by Sam's biological night vision. So now they let Sam see through walls. I've gotten through most of the game without wall hacks, and enemies are not doing anything new to require the use of this. So Sam's iconic goggles end up feeling like a vestigial organ that can be removed with no adverse reaction.
The president! They're gonna take out the president after the EMPs go off. Paralyze the city. Use it as cover for the hit. Tonight.
If it wasn't clear before that the White House is the target, it is now. And this is well before the EMPs go off. They could send a warning to the president about the upcoming attack. Get her and her cabinet out of DC before all this takes place. They do none of that.
Sarah Fisher, I'd received reliable intelligence of a credible threat against her. One coming from a mole inside Third Echelon. The The threat against Sarah would be used in an attempt to leverage Sam. Sam would then be compromised, and I couldn't allow that. So I made the hard choice. I faked Sarah's death, taking her off the playing board. Without her, Sam would be free to act as he needed to. He'd suffer, but she'd be safe.
Lambert faked Sarah's death to protect Sam from people who are planning to use her to gain leverage over him, but I think there's a less drastic way of going about that instead of telling the father and daughter that each other is dead. Lambert could have just told Sam the truth, then faked Sarah's death and placed her in hiding. Did they think Sam couldn't keep a secret?
They've got 3 directional EMP generators in place. When they go off, the pulses will blanket the entire metro area. Optimal coverage pattern predictions place one of those 3 at the Old City Reservoir site. You need to go there and disable it.
Why should I?
Because that's the one that will hit Sarah's apartment.
The EMP is not really a threat to Sarah. It only knocks out electronics. So unless wiping your phone is considered an immediate threat to her well-being, I think you can focus on the bigger issue. The only person you know that's in danger is the president. Why is Sam's daughter getting all this priority? And why the hell was Sarah relocated and given a new identity in Washington, D.C. when she was in possible danger from a third echelon mole? Third echelon works out of D.C. as well. Sam was just at their headquarters.
What about you?
I'm going to the White House with Tom Reed, and I'm going to try to save the president.
You're going to be with Reed during the attack on the White House that hasn't even happened yet. How about you just shoot him when you see him? This isn't that hard to stop before it happens.
Tell me how to stop
You
it.
can't. There's 2 generators on site. When they're activated, they'll juice the EMP, and then it'll discharge.
What's the catch?
If you take out one generator, the other one automatically flashes. Each of them alone is enough to trigger the pulse.
So I need to hit both at the same time.
I'm not sure why they are so concerned with stopping this one EMP. They've already decided to let the other 2 go off since they didn't know their location, and Sarah is on Vic's chopper. If this one goes off, it changes nothing. Why was a third EMP Sam and Vic destroyed so far away where it would have zero effect on blocking out DC? All 3 of them survived the helicopter being shot out of the air, something that has a very low survivability rate. I'm glad I waited a few more months before sending this game, because had I done so earlier, I would have seen how ridiculous storming the White House is. Even in our new reality where that is something that can plausibly happen, the point in your story where the bad guy storms the White House, killing everyone inside in an attempt to take control of the United States, is the point where most writers laugh at themselves and throw the page in the trash can. But the trash is where Ubisoft find most of their plot lines, so I shouldn't be surprised that they went with it. The Vice President is in the White House while the attack is going on, waiting for Reed to finish assassinating the President so he can take the job, which would probably come across as suspicious why he wasn't killed along with everyone else if he was here. But that's a small question compared to the next. How was he planning to get away with not using the full might of the United States to go after the people who just killed the President and everyone in the White House?
I thought we were in a hurry.
Right. We need to get you close to Reed, and we need to do it in a way that doesn't make him double tap the president immediately.
Got any ideas?
One. But it's gonna hurt.
Just do what you have to do.
I always do, Sam. I always do. Tom? I've got Fisher. I'm bringing him in.
All that build up to this moment between Grimm and Sam, and it's clearly spelled out that it's just their plan to get Sam close to Reed by pretending Grimm has taken him prisoner. What was the goddamn point of hyping this scene? Video games prepared hard for that eventual Hillary Clinton presidency. There's more pantsuit-wearing Madam Presidents in games than anywhere else, including reality.
So how does it feel, Sam? Knowing you're gonna go down in history as the man who assassinated President Caldwell.
Was this the plan all along? Blame Sam for it? I can't see that being the case considering you tried to kill him every step of the way here.
You don't honestly believe that this is gonna work. The surveillance cameras footage is gonna show.
Your cameras, we own them. Your security measures, we made sure the Pulse fried them. We're third echelon, Madam President. We own every bit of information that goes through this town. And if I want to, I can make it look like you were assassinated by 2 circus clowns and a golden retriever.
Why, that makes it sound like it would have been far easier for Reed to set up a scandal that would have gotten her impeached, which would have been a far more realistic plan than a full-scale assault on the White House after using a weapon of mass destruction. The climax of the game is the game shooting everyone for you. Nice shot, game. Vic was being questioned this entire time by Black Arrow, who I would have to assume after their assault on the White House were arrested or killed, but somehow they had the ability to capture Vic and take him in for questioning. And then from the sound of it, Sam breaks in and kills them all, and I'm guessing he killed all Megiddo while he was at it, because they're not in the next game.
Yeah, a few. I've heard they don't make them like me anymore. There was this other guy, though. Army infiltration. He wore a bandana or something.